Hello everyone, welcome to tutorial 2 of Design Project 3. In this video, we're going to learn how to update our UH homepage so that it can display one of our class projects. To do this, we're going to be using the most basic layout element from Bootstrap, called a container. In fact, we're going to have two containers. The first container will be up here at the top of our page, and it is going to hold our Jumbotron, everything we did last week. The second container will be right below the first one, as shown here. We want two containers because this will give us some granularity in how we control each of them. For example, as soon as our home page loads, we want all of the content in the second container to be hidden from view. However, when the user clicks the Project 1 button, we want things to change. Specifically, we're going to do two things when that button is pressed. First, we're going to add a title, and then we're going to make the second container visible. By doing this, we can show an image, which in this case will be our design from the first week of class. And, as you might imagine, if the user eventually clicks the Home button, we will hide everything again. So to add this kind of interactivity to our home page, we're going to use jQuery, a popular JavaScript library that's included with Bootstrap. So that's an overview of what we're going to do in this video. So let's get started. Okay, let's begin adding our Canva image to our UH homepage. To get started, let me show you what I have open here in Chrome. So I actually have 5 tabs. The first tab is right where we left off from last week. So this is our current version of our home page. I also have a Canva tab open, and then I actually have a couple of code snippets, 1, 2, 3, which you will find linked in the assignment details. Now, the first thing that we need to do is actually download our design from Canva. So I'm going to go over to Canva, and you can see up here in the left-hand corner, I'm already logged in, and I can click on all your designs, and they're going to show me the one design that I've actually created in Canva. You may have many more depending on how frequently you've used this. So I'm going to click on that to open up that project, and I'm actually going to click Edit. And Canva is going to load up, and I'm going to come up to the right-hand corner here and click on this download drop-down, and you can see there's lots of different formats and ways that we can download this, or embed it, or integrate it into various social media platforms. But what we want to do is simply download it. So I'm going to click Download, and I'm going to keep the default file type, which is a portable network graphic, PNG, and I'm just going to click Download. And it looks like this advertisement pops up. I'm going to close that. I don't really want it. I'm going to minimize my browser, and I can see that my image downloaded. Now, it has a big long name that's not particularly helpful, so I'm going to immediately rename this file. And I'm going to call it design_project1, just like that. Design project 1. Now, you'll also notice on my desktop, I have my public_HTML folder from last week. So let me double click, and inside here you can see I have my HTML file that we were editing last week. Now, in this folder, what I'm going to do is create a new folder, and I'm just going to label this Images. And I'm actually going to drag and drop design_project_01.png. I'm going to put that in the Images folder, just like that. So my index HTML file, if we want, will be able to reference this image file that we have stored in the folder called Images. Great. So now what I need to do is actually upload this folder and the picture to the UH server. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to come over to Filezilla. And here is the Filezilla interface. And I am going to load up my site. It's my UH homepage. It's all the same exact settings from last time. I'm going to click Connect. It's going to ask for my password. I'm going to click OK, and it's going to load up. Now, I want to make sure that the left window and the right window are synchronized in terms of what they're looking at. So let's start with a local computer first. I'm going to realize I'm in the dan.hoffman folder. I'm going to go navigate to my desktop, and then on my desktop I'm going to go into public_HTML, and right away you can see there's that folder we created, images. Now what I want to do is come over to the server side and go into the public_HTML folder. So I'm going to double click there, and we can see our two files from last week. Our original file that we just saved as a backup, and then the actual live one, index.html. And so all I'm going to do is literally I'm going to select this folder, images, and I'm going to drag and drop it, and it's going to upload to the server. For now, we're done with Filezilla, and just to show you that I didn't just move the folder, if I go inside of images, I can see that there's my portable network graphic. My image file is actually right here. And if I need to go back up a level, I just double click right here. And so what we're going to do now is begin to edit our index.html file on our local computer. So what I need to do is open up brackets, and I'm going to come File, Open, and it's going to ask me what do I want to open. Well, I want to make sure I go to Desktop, and then I want to go into Public HTML, and then I want to open my index.html file because that's the one we're going to be editing. And we see our code from last week. So as the introductory video explained, we're going to be using something called a container. So what we're going to do is we're just going to come into the body tag here, and we're going to create a new division, a new div. So I'm going to type in div, and we're going to give it a class equal to, and then we have to give this class a name. And this is a bootstrap class that comes with it, but it's going to be called container-fluid. And then I'm going to close that, and brackets automatically gives me the closing div. So I'm going to delete that and paste it right here. And so let me just clean up this code a little bit. I'm going to indent that and move that out just so it's... And one of the things we can do is good practice when we're writing HTML or really any type of code is to put in comments. And so this closing tag is for the Jumbotron. So the way you write comments in HTML is you put the less than sign, then an exclamation point dash dash, and then you can write whatever you want. So I'm going to write close Jumbotron, and then you close it by dash dash greater than sign. That's just a note for myself that this div is closing the Jumbotron section. And then I'm actually going to copy this, and I'm going to paste this again. I'm going to paste that comment in, but I'm going to say that this isn't closing the Jumbotron, it's actually closing my container. So I'm just going to put in a note to myself that we're going to close the container. So let's go ahead and save this and see what we get for results. So I'm going to come up File, Save, or Command or Control S, depending on what you're working on. And I'm going to switch over to Filezilla, and I'm going to just refresh. And then what I'm going to do is take my index page and drag and drop it onto the server. Filezilla is going to warn me, are you sure that file already exists? Do you want to overwrite it? And I'm going to say yes and click OK. Good. Now let's switch over to the browser, and I can close Canva. I don't really need it anymore. And let's just take a look at, this is before the page has loaded. It's exactly what we had last week. Now, if I click the refresh button here, it should load that new index.html file that I just uploaded. So let's see what happens. So I'm going to click this, and not much happens, but what you will notice is now I have a little bit of padding here on the left and on the right. And so I want to fix that so that this top container goes all the way from end to end. And in order to do that, we are going to need a little bit of CSS code. And so in the first code snippet, which is right here, I am going to change the padding for a class of container fluid. I'm going to change the padding so that it's 0 pixels on the left and right. So I'm going to copy this code, Control C or Command C. I'm going to come back over to brackets, and up here in the header of my HTML file, I'm going to put this actually after the title. I'm just going to paste in that code. And it pasted in a little sloppy, so I'm just going to put in some indents here, some tabs, just to make it clean it up a bit. Excellent. Now, if I save this and upload it, I'm changing the default styling of the Bootstrap style sheet. I'm overriding that and telling it I want no padding on the left and right. So let me save this, File Save. I'm going to come over to Filezilla, and I'm going to drag and drop that updated file to the server. I'm going to overwrite it, and then I'm going to come back to my home page, and when I refresh it, we should see this padding disappear on the left and right. Let's test it. Let me click refresh, and boom, it's gone. Excellent. So the next step in the process is to add a button here next to the home button, and that's going to be the button that the user presses in order to display that image we downloaded from Canva. So let's switch back over to brackets. If we look at our code here inside the container and inside of the Jumbotron, we already have the home button. So what I can do is copy that code, and I'm going to paste it in there. Now I want these two buttons to be different. They both can't be named home. So what I need to do is I'm just going to call this one Project 1. You can name it whatever you want, doesn't matter. Now there's one other thing that we need to do. We want to give these buttons an ID, a unique ID, so that we can communicate with them and respond depending on which button is pressed. So I'm going to come into the code, and after the class, I'm going to put in ID equals and 2 quotation marks, and I'm going to call this button home. And notice that I use the lowercase b and a capital H. And then what I'm going to do is copy that code, and in the second button, I'm going to copy and paste it. But this one is going to be called button Project 01. So let's go ahead and save that. All these IDs are unique names that we've given these buttons so that we can refer to these in our JavaScript. So let's actually see if this works. I'm going to save my file, File, Save. I'm going to come back over to Filezilla, and I'm going to drag and drop my updated index file. Click OK. Switch back over to Chrome. And let's refresh the page. And you can see I've got 2 buttons side by side. Very good. So our next step in the process is going to be to add the second container. And that's the container that is going to be down here and is going to hold the content of our various projects. I've already created the code for you, and that is the second code snippet. And so let me copy all of this code in the second code snippet. I'm copying that. I'm going to come back over to brackets, and then I'm going to insert this. Now, the question is, where do I insert all of that code? Well, I'm going to insert it underneath the first container because the code I'm posting in is actually my second container. So let me paste this in, and I'm going to take a minute just to clean this up a little bit. I'm going to indent this. Now notice this container is not of class fluid. That means it's not going to go the full width of the screen. It's just going to be centered. Let's take a close look at what is in this code. So inside of this container, there is a row. And inside of the row, there is a column. And inside of the column, there is an H3 tag. And that tag has the ID of project title. And so let's just put a little code in here. This is, or let's put a little text in here. This is a sample title, just so we have something that we can actually see. And then I have two closing tags. I close my column and I close my row. And then underneath that, I actually have another row. And in that row, there is a column. And then here I have another div. And this div or this division has the name Project 1, or that's the ID. And in it, there is an image tag. So what I need to do is actually tell my code where is the image that I want to load. What is the source of that image? So I need to tell my website to look in the images folder and to load a specific file. And the name of the file, I called it design_project_01.png. Now make sure you use the correct capitalization here. It should be exactly the same as the name of the file that we uploaded to the server. So let's save this and see if it actually works. I'm going to just move that out so I can tell. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to come over to Filezilla and I'm going to drag and drop. I'm going to overwrite that existing HTML. And then I'm going to switch over to Chrome. And in theory, if I load this, look what I see. Voila. I've got my second container. And at the top of that container is my sample title. And down below is the image that I told it to load. Now, if for some reason you don't see your image, you need to make sure that your file name that you specified is exactly what the file is actually named. So now the next step in this process is to actually make these buttons do something. So by default, when the page loads, we want all of this stuff to be hidden. If the user clicks Project 1, we want this information to appear. So in order to create that kind of interactivity, we have to add in some JavaScript. So in order to do that, I'm going to come over to the third code snippet. And you can see here that I have written some JavaScript code. And so let's select that and copy it. And I'm going to come over to brackets. And I'm going to paste in that code right here down at the bottom of my page. Now, I've actually already done that just to make it a little bit faster, so you don't have to watch me clean up the code. But essentially, we should put it in line by line, just like this. Now, I want to do a couple of things. First, I want to select all of this code, and I'm going to comment it out. And so what I'm going to do is come up to Edit, and I'm going to say toggle line comment like this. And notice that the text turns gray. And what that is going to do is comment out this code so that it doesn't run. But what this is going to allow us to do is go line by line so we know exactly what's going to happen and we can test along the way. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just explain what's happening here with this code. So the way that this works is basically this is telling the HTML page as soon as the document is ready, we want some code to execute. We want some JavaScript to actually happen and take control of our page. And so let's uncomment these first two lines and notice they turn their colors, So the very first thing that we want to have happen when our page loads is we want to find the element called project title. And if I scroll up here, here is that element on line 53. It has the ID project title, and I said this is a sample title. I just wrote that in there. Basically, this is saying change the text of project title so that it's nothing. It's just empty. So you can see I don't have any, I could write whatever I want between here, but right now I want it to be just nothing so that it's blank. The second instruction that is going to run is we're going to find the element called project 1, and we're going to set its display property to none. In other words, it's going to be invisible. And so let's find project 1, and project 1 is right here. It's this division with the ID project 1 that contains our image resource. And so let's see if this actually works. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to come over to Filezilla and I'm going to drag and drop my file. I'm going to overwrite. I'm going to switch back over to Chrome and I'm going to refresh the page. And when I do that, we can see the page loads and right away we don't see anything, which is exactly what we wanted. Now, if I click on Home or Project 1, these buttons still don't do anything because I commented out of the code. So let's see if we can get this Project 1 button working. So I am going to switch back over to brackets, and I'm actually going to come down to this bottom portion right here. And this is the code that is going to make the button for Project 1 work. So let's deselect or uncomment this code. And let's see if we can understand what it's doing. So basically it's saying for the element named Button Project 1, and if I come all the way back up here to the Jumbotron, this right here, line 41, is Button Project 1. And it says when someone clicks on that button, we want two things to happen. We want our element with the ID of project title, we're going to give it a new title. And you could put whatever you want in here. I just called it a simple exploration of text-image relations. The second instruction that needs to run is we want the element with the ID project 1 to show itself. So let's save this and see if it actually works. So I'm going to save, come over to Filezilla, drag and drop, overwrite the file, switch back over to Chrome, and refresh the page. Now I don't see anything, so if I click Project 1, I should see those elements become visible. I click the button and boom, we see the results. Excellent. Now, unfortunately, if somebody comes and clicks on the Home button, everything is still there. So we need to fix that. So let's come back over to brackets. And as you can imagine, I've already given you the code, which is right here. And let's uncomment this code. Let's see what that code actually says. Well, it says for the element with the ID of button home, when somebody clicks on it, we want two things to happen. We want project title to be empty, and we want project 1 to hide itself. So let's see what happens. I'm going to save, come over to Filezilla, drag and drop the updated file, click OK, come back to Chrome, refresh the page. It starts out blank. I should be able to click the Project 1 button. Boom, we see our project. If I click Home, it should disappear. And let me click, it goes away. And I can switch back and forth between this with no problem. Okay, that's all for this tutorial. Great work, everyone.